Life is a journey,
not a destination.
And you don't need to go it alone.
Join me for practical tips and strategies on using mindfulness techniques and creating mindset shifts that can reduce stress, improve productivity, and give you a fresh perspective on work and life.
This is a Candy Factory Mini.
Mastering the Mindful Mindset
with Jose Johnson.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering the Mindful Mindset. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. Today, we're going to talk about ways to make sense of the world with our senses. But first, let's set the stage properly by doing our little reset. Now, if you watched episode 1, you will hopefully remember this exercise. If you haven't watched it yet, don't worry. You can always follow along with us. Just make sure you go back to episode 1, watch it later, so you can catch all of the details. So, either sitting or standing, put one hand just below your belly button and the other hand on the small of your back. And imagine your abdomen is like a big balloon, and we're just going to take in a nice deep breath, filling the belly. So a deep breath in, and then let it go. And again, a nice deep breath in. And release it slowly. And one more nice deep breath in. And slow breath out. All right, hopefully that little reset has allowed you to clear your mind and get you in the right state of mind for our time together today. Are you aware of how many things are going on around you right now? How many things your senses are picking up? Sights, sounds, smells, sensations? I guarantee that it's probably a whole lot more than you think. Every second, our senses are picking up approximately 11 million bits of information. That's right, 11 million every second. That's a lot of information, and it's actually too much information for your brain to effectively manage. So how does the brain keep itself from being overwhelmed? Through a process called selective filtering or selective attention. While there are numerous regions of the brain that are involved with processing incoming sensory information, there does appear to be a singular place where everything comes together. And that area is called the thalamus. The thalamus acts like a distribution center. All of the sensory neurons meet there, and their information packages are shipped to their final destination in the cerebral cortex. So, in the process of selective filtering, the sensory organs send signals to the various parts of the brain associated with processing that particular type of signal, visual, auditory, etc. Then that information is passed on to the thalamus, packaged and shipped to the cortex. The cortex then looks everything over and decides what information is most crucial. And this is where it gets interesting. The cortex then sends a signal back to the thalamus to say, we need more of this and less of that. The message is received by a part of the thalamus called the reticular nucleus. Think of it like a bouncer at a nightclub. Its job is to make sure that all of the things that the cortex wants to pay attention to get through with VIP treatment. And those signals that are not on the VIP list, well, they get blocked by a neurotransmitter called GABA, which prevents them from getting past the velvet rope of the thalamus and into the cortex. So why is all this scientific gobbledygook so important? Well, once you begin to understand how the system works and why certain things stay in our awareness and others get locked out, you can begin to understand the importance of deliberately opening your sensory awareness, and the way to do that is with mindfulness. The thing to remember is that our reality is shaped by the combination of what we think and believe and what we experience and perceive. This is why when you have a specific belief like life sucks, that your brain can only see all of the crappy stuff that happens to you. It's not that good things aren't happening, it's just that the positive news is being stonewalled by your reticular nucleus. So as far as your cerebral cortex is concerned, that information doesn't exist. And this begins a vicious cycle. Once the cortex decides that things are bad, it wants to find more evidence to support that belief, which means that the reticular nucleus gets orders to block anything that is not in support of that view, which strengthens the belief, which increases the blockade, and so on and so on. Now, a real-world example of how this works is the way that algorithms are used on the internet. That's the programming that continues to feed us more and more of what we search for. So let's say you search for men's shoes. You'll get back a search result, and then you will click on the result to view the website. And from that point forward, you will start being shown more and more ads about men's shoes. And the more you click, the more ads you will see. Now, this is part of the idea behind artificial intelligence. It's creating machines that think like humans, and that's the way the human brain actually functions. Now, when you add the algorithm to our natural selective filtering processes, this is when things really can go sideways. The brain is stuck in a negative feedback loop. You think things are bad, so your reticular nucleus is only going to let information that confirms that belief get through the thalamus to the cortex. And because you might be searching for videos or news to confirm that bias, the algorithm makes sure that you get fed more of it on a constant diet, which also gets put into the express lane to your cortex, which strengthens your belief, which increases the information bias, which creates more searching, which gives you more results, which get rushed to your cortex, and so on and so on. Now, this explains why so many people get stuck doom scrolling and can't accept alternate points of view. They literally don't register in their brains or on their screens. But don't lose hope. Selective attention is just a process. It's not inherently good or bad. It's all about how it's used. And that's why it's so important to understand the science behind it. If your brain can get stuck in a negative feedback loop, it can just as easily create a positive loop, once you know how. So let's look at ways to reset our sensory defaults. Now, unless something specifically calls out for our attention, our senses are primarily working in the background. If you go back to my episode on mindful communication, I talk about the difference between hearing and listening. Our hearing is constantly working. If there's an audible sound wave in the range of our ears, it is picked up. It's when we make the conscious choice to pay attention to the sound that we go from hearing to listening. So it's the same thing with all of our senses. So what we're going to do today is to learn how to practice taking conscious control of our senses. Not because there's a threat and not because something has caught our attention in a positive way. We're going to do it mindfully, simply being aware of this without judgment. So let's get to the first exercise. It's called See the Rainbow. And we're going to do this one together. So I want you just to stop for a moment and take a casual look around. You're not looking for anything in particular, just gaze at your surroundings. Now I want you to close your eyes for a second and think about the color red. Now open your eyes and begin to notice all of the red objects that surround you. Just open your awareness to the color red. Allow every red object you see to register in your conscious mind. Great. Now let's do a little reset. Close your eyes again and think this time about the color blue. Now open your eyes and take note of all the blue things that you see. Open your awareness to the color blue. Look all around you with your awareness open to the color blue. And become aware of all of the things that you didn't notice before. Now, you can continue with this exercise for as long as you want. You can even extend the length of time you focus your awareness, maybe 10 minutes, an hour, even a day. What this does is shows you that there are things that you look at every day but probably don't notice. It may be a color, it may be a shape, or it could be an opportunity. Learn to open your eyes and your awareness to everything that's around you. Listen to the music. Being a trumpet player, anytime there's a horn playing on a song, my mind immediately focuses in on it. Now, this is something that I do automatically now after years of having to learn horn parts off of recordings. So like I talked about earlier, my cerebral cortex has established a standing order with my reticular nucleus to always let trumpets go to the front of the line whenever I'm listening to music. Now, this is a powerful example of how when you apply Hebb's rule, and this is a principle in neuroscience that states that neurons that fire together wire together. With selective attention, the concept that your mind directs your brain to only pay attention to what it wants and ignore what it doesn't, this creates a closed system as your default listening mode. So if we don't want to lose our ability to consciously choose what we hear, we need to exercise that muscle. So here's the exercise we can do, and it's called Listen to the Music. The next time you listen to music, try focusing your attention on one instrument at a time. Perhaps you focus on the drums or the bass. Maybe you listen intently to the horns, or listen to the subtleties of the vocalist's phrasing, like when they breathe or how they emphasize certain words. Once you've listened with deliberate attention, go back and just listen and see if you hear things differently. The power in this exercise is that we often fail to register all the things that we hear, and in the grander scheme of things, this relates to our inability to hear facts that don't match our current belief system because our mind is completely shutting them out. So once you get skilled with music, try listening to nature. Pick out sounds that you otherwise would ignore. Then try doing the same thing with your sources of information, particularly if you only use one source for all of your news. Try listening to other voices with an open mind and an open heart. Remember, the first rule of mindfulness is that you should be non-judgmental. So try to hear and understand what others are saying before you decide if you want to keep that information on your VIP list. The final exercise I want to share with you is called the Daredevil. Now, I'm a bit of a comic book geek, and one of my favorite characters that I used to love growing up was Daredevil. He was blinded as a child, but his other senses became heightened. In reality, we see this occur every day. When one sense is lost or diminished, the other senses pick up the slack. There's even research that shows that the remaining sensory organs can annex the neural real estate that the deprived sense would normally hold. So to do the Daredevil, try doing things with your eyes closed and see how that affects the level of sensitivity in the rest of your body. You can start with your hearing, trying to register as many sounds as possible, then switch to your sense of smell. What do you smell? What memories does it bring up? You see, our sense of smell is closely associated with our memory. Scents are so powerful because the olfactory bulb is actually part of your limbic system, which is the home of your emotions. And scents completely bypass the thalamus on their way from the nose to the brain. Then try to become more aware of your body, how individual parts of your body feel. It's like doing a body scan, but even more detailed. Try to become aware of the feel of the clothes against your skin or the circulation of the air around you. The big lesson in this is life is not just what you see or hear. It's made up of many things, things that often get overlooked or downright ignored by your current programming. When you can learn to see with more than your eyes, to hear with more than your ears, you gain a new perspective on your problems and the world around you. So, thanks for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed our time together and that you have some new ideas on how you can make sense of the world with your senses. If you have any questions or a topic you'd like me to cover in a future episode, drop it in the comment section. I'll do my best to help you out. Make sure you subscribe and share this episode with someone that you feel could benefit from this information. And also, please take time to check out all the other fantastic programming brought to you here on the Candy Factory Collective. So, until next time, remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great. Mastering the Mindful Mindset is part of the Candy Factory mini-series and is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective. You can find the show streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, and you can subscribe to the audio version anywhere you get your podcast.
Jose Johnson has traveled the world competing and teaching martial arts.
He's an entrepreneur, musician, author, and speaker.
Check out Jose's other podcast,
The Trumpet Gurus Hang.
And learn more about his book,
Mindfulness Secrets, at his website,
josejohnson.com.
Mastering the Mindful Mindset is produced by the Candy Factory Collective.
at the Candy Factory Co-working Campus in Lancaster, PA.
Our music was written and recorded by Jose. Production support by Anna Tran.
Administrative support by Ann Kirby, Ariana Henderson,
Krisha Martzel, Jason Mundock, and Robert Diggs.
Notes and links can be found at the show post at our website,
CandyFactoryCollective.com.
Candy Factory.
Collective.